You're live, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this District Planning Committee held on Tuesday, the 11th of July 2023. My name is Councillor Kevin Lagan, and I am the chairman of this committee, and I'm joined in the chamber this evening by Officer Mr. Michael Johnson. Members and all present, we're streaming this meeting live as well as recording, and by being present in the meeting, you are giving your consent to being recorded. During each item, please put your hand up to indicate if you wish to speak. I will then invite you at the appropriate time. Could I ask members to avoid approaching the top table, as this could create interference with the cameras and the live stream equipment. Please note that the YouTube live stream sound recording is dependent on the correct use of your microphones. Therefore, can I ask that when invited to speak, you remember to turn on your microphone and turn it off when finished. Please reference a page or a paragraph number when referring to the agenda papers, and keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible, please. Agenda item number 2, apologies for absence. Committee Clerk, could I have apologies for absence, please?
Good evening, Chair. We have apologies for absence from Councillors Bassinger, Bell, Burwood, Hayward, Leigh, Morgan, Morley, Neal, Pratt, Shaughnessy and Siddle. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. We move to agenda item 3, which is minutes of the last meeting. It is recommended that the minutes of the meeting held on the 14th of June 2023, found on pages 7 to 16, are approved as a true and accurate record. I propose this. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Spenceley, Councillor Paula Spenceley, thank you. Does any member wish to raise any points of accuracy? So we'll agree that by assent, members? Thank you very much indeed. Item number 4, which is declarations of interest. To disclose the existence and nature of any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests relating to items of business on the agenda, having regard to paragraph 9 and appendix B of the Code of Conduct for members. Members are reminded that they are also required to disclose any such interests as soon as they become aware, should the needs arise throughout the meeting. Members, do I have any declarations? Tara, there are no declarations registered, thank you. Agenda item 5 has been deferred upon advice of the monitoring officer and the planning department, so we will move on to agenda item 6, which is reference number 23/00226/RESM, which is land at Broad Street Green Road and Langford Road and Maypole Road, Great Totham, Essex, which is found in your agenda pack on pages 27 to 70. We have a public participant, Mr. Carl Glossop, who's an agent for the applicant, and I'll ask Mr. Glossop to attend the table and speak after the officer's report. I believe, Mr. Johnson, there's a verbal update on this item.
Thank you, Chairman. The verbal update relates to consultations received since the publication of the agenda. And as set out in the report, where it said that there would be an update. From Waste, there's been no response. Place Services Ecology, they have no objections subject to conditions relating to soft landscaping, retention and protection of existing hedges and shrubs, tree protection and service runs, all with details to be submitted for approval. Utility Services, we don't have any response from Utility Services, but that's not uncommon. The developer is required under mandatory regulations in terms of works that would impact on the nature and capacity of existing infrastructure, and work with the utility companies accordingly. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Back to you, Mr. Johnson, to present the report, please. Or the presentation, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Right, so this application is for the reserved matters for phase 3, comprising parcel 4 for 234 dwellings, following outline approval on appeal in 2019 for approximately 1,100 dwellings. The reserved matters comprise access, appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. And the development is one of several parcels of residential development. And as obviously as members can see, there's a corresponding application comprising 3 parcels, and it follows other previous parcels which have been approved by this committee, those being parcels 1 and 2, and 10, 11 and 12. So I'll just take you through the slides. So again, there's a location plan. This is the application site and where it fits in within the overall Haybridge Garden suburb development site. This is a proposed layout plan. Again, we can just see the houses obviously laid out around a courtyard type of development, and the roads that go into the various parcels sort of in a traditional way. But I think the key thing to sort of draw out here is where these various parcels link in with the wider infrastructure. So we can see the various exit points where they do link into the various infrastructure to enable obviously the free flow of movement into and out of the various plots. Story heights, we have the key here, single story, 2-story, 2.5 story and 3 stories, and how they're plotted around the site. The affordable housing, we can see these are the coloured one, and again how there's an element of pepper potting them throughout the development. Again, this is material layout just to give an indication of the various types of materials used on the housing and the various blocks. Again, just identifying where the amenity areas are for the various types of development. So for example, 2-bed properties. You can see there's quite a distribution there. And this is a street scene. Around this various plot, we've got the 3 sides of the development which they've identified on this key here. So at the top, along the western edge and to the southern edge here, by these corresponding scenes here. Just to show you the variation, the gaps between the various housing, the variation in heights and the different styles of dwellings. And again, we've got some sections here through the site along some of the internal roads, and again just showing the different building types and their heights and sort of where they're located. Landscape plan, again fairly general. Access and movement plans, so we see the primary vehicle access, proposed principal pedestrian and cycle routes. I mean, this is a generalized key which covers all the various plots, so not all the elements of the key relates to all of the individual parcels. We've got some example of house types: bedroom bungalows, 2-bedroom bungalows, blocks of flats, floor plans of flats, 2-bed dwellings. Again, just to give an illustration of the various types of dwellings proposed: 5-bed dwellings, bin and cycle store, carports, garages, and just some visualizations. Again, just some photographs from the aerial perspective. We can see an element of the spine road here, view of parcel 4 from various elements there. Again, just more photographs showing what's sort of happening. I think the key one here is this aerial view, so you can just clearly see where the various plots are. So we've got parcel 1 and parcel 2. These were approved previously. This is parcel 5. This is yet to come forward. We've got the school in the local centre. We've got the spine road identified there. And in terms of this application, we can see parcel 4 located over here. Okay, we've got the various rows and just identifying again where the various plots are respective to each other. Locus centre down here. We've got parcels 3, 6 and 7, that's the other application on this agenda, the open space and the neat neighbourhood play area, Haybridge Wood over here, and again just pointing out some of the sort of main areas within the development sites. So I'll just go back to sort of the proposed layout and just quickly run through some elements of the proposal, but also in context of the development as a whole. So, as mentioned earlier, this application proposes 234 dwellings. And again, just for context with the other application, which to a large extent is very similar, the two applications that members will be considering today comprise 480 dwellings. And then again, just to give some further context, with the previously approved scheme, which were 422 dwellings, that would mean with these two applications under consideration, there'd be 902 dwellings out of the 1,100 development approval on the outline scheme. So although separate residential parcels have come forward, these are all to be read in conjunction with the approved strategic landscaping and infrastructure schemes for the various phases of the development. And I've just pointed these out, and these are all referenced towards the end of the report. So 21000384, 21000961, and 22000289. Those are the key principal landscaping and infrastructure schemes which have already been approved and provide the skeleton really to which all these parcels are being fitted and to which they would work with. So these applications, the infrastructure and landscaping, those include the various internal main roads, the spine road, green corridors, open spaces, landscaping of the attenuation basins, pedestrian and cycle networks, formal play areas and allotments. So as again emphasized, they provide the context to these various parcels. So this application follows a similar form to previous approved schemes in terms of compliance with the required parameter plans comprising matters of land use, green and blue infrastructure, access and movement, building heights and residential density. In addition, there is compliance with affordable housing quotas of 30% across the development and housing mix to comply with housing need requirements. Under Section 5 of the report, there is a Section 106 update in respect of the various legal agreement requirements of the development and how they are progressing. And these cover the use facilities, Haybridge Wood Management Plan, which has been approved, the progression of the education provision, early years and primary / secondary school, the local centre, medical facilities, bus service agreement, local management organisation, and the formalised play areas. Electric charging points are to be provided to each new dwelling. This is in accordance with the vehicle parking standards, supplementary planning document. The drainage strategy has already been approved under the original hybrid application. 5.8 of the report refers to in detail of the details approved. Under this particular application, the Lead Local Flood Authority has no objections to the drainage strategy, such design and maintenance report accompanying this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Mr. Johnson, thank you very much indeed. I'd like to invite Mr. Carl Glossop, who's the agent for the applicant, to come up to the table. There's a spare microphone next to Councillor Fluker. If you, yep, you go next to Councillor Stamp and Councillor Fluker. Mr. Glossop, you have 2 minutes allocated to you for when you start speaking. There'll be a clock come up on the screen, hopefully in a moment. So you have 2 minutes starting from the time you start speaking. Thank you.
Good evening, councillors. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. As members will be aware, the North Heybridge Garden Suburb is a key part of the council's adopted local plan and is set to deliver a significant proportion of the council's supply of new homes. In Countryside's role as master developer, we've previously submitted reserve matters applications for the delivery of the strategic landscaping and infrastructure, which includes the relief road, all the site-wide drainage, and the strategic open spaces and play areas which surround the residential parcels. Work is now well advanced in delivering that infrastructure in line with the outline consent. This application forms part of the third phase of house building, which will start to fill out the centre of the garden suburb close to the local centre. The scheme in front of you tonight has been designed in collaboration with the Council's planning and design officers, with comments made both at pre-app and post-submission stages, shaping and influencing the final scheme design. The mix of housing types accords with the outline permission, with a high proportion of smaller units as required, and also includes 10 bungalows, slightly higher than the 4% requirement from the outline consent. Some members will remember the rather unpopular villa units from phase 1 and will be pleased to hear these units have been removed from this phase. The scheme will deliver 70 affordable homes, which comprises 30% of the site in line with policy, with the mix meeting the Council's requirements in respect of tenure and size as well. All of the new homes will meet the national space standards and provided with policy compliant levels of amenity space, back-to-back distances and appropriate parking. The scheme accords with the parameter plans and with the strategic design code endorsed by the Council. Officers consider the design to be of a high quality in line with the pre-application discussions and reflecting the aspirations of the strategic design code more generally. In light of these factors, we hope that members will be able to support the officer's recommendation of approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glossop. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Steels. Okay, members, we have a recommendation to approve which is found on page 27 of the report, which is subject conditions outlined in section 8, which commences on page 63. I move this recommendation. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Stevens. Members, open the floor. Any comments? Thank you, Councillor Paula Spenceley.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. So obviously this is reserved matters, and obviously, you know, it's already got the outline permission. And I hear all this stuff about design codes, but to me that really didn't look like a garden suburb in the pictures. It doesn't look how maybe I'd hope it did for my residents living so close by. And it's not just having a whinge, but I found out only yesterday that the primary school isn't set to come through till 30 to 33. Where we'll have all that housing built out. I found out that one of the parcels already built is more than half of it looks like it's up for private rental rather than sale. I don't know, I just wonder if it is this vision of a garden suburb, and I hope as we move forward to look at our own local plan that we think carefully about when we use words like garden, because it doesn't change anything for the residents there. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spenceley. I think that's a statement with a comment. Yeah. Councillor White, please.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Chair. I've actually been through this, and funny enough, it kind of corresponds with Councillor Spenceley, because I'm looking at this, and for me, yes, we know we've got the housing coming, but it's the design. Now, these 3-storey houses, they all seem to be at the main spine. So again, when you come down this main spine, we're trying to create a city effect or a town effect. And I don't know how many times we've asked these developers to gradually phase this housing in, not so it's an in your face, I'm a town or a city, let's have these great big 3-story buildings as we drive in. So I have a problem with the design per se. On 3.1.9, where is that space and how big is it, including the ditches and the verges? That's the first question. On 3.1.11, where are the green and open spaces? Because they should be dotted around the development, so we're encouraging people to get out and use these spaces, but I couldn't actually find them. All I could see was houses, unless it's just poked on one side somewhere. On 3.1.27, we've got land use parameter, plan density and garden layout, green spaces. Again, it's the same theme. It's supposed to be a garden suburb. It's supposed to be green. Where's the green? This looks like you could be in any city in the country and there isn't the green spacing out these houses. For me, the design should be all about promoting well-being, promoting space, promoting that greenness that we're famed for. We're Malden. We're not Basildon or Harlow or somewhere. We're Malden. That's why we have these garden suburbs. Moving on from there, 3.2.1, it's the same thing. Conclusion: design quality of life, green spaces, encouraging outside use. Well, where is it? On 3.1.34 and 3.1.36, it says focus on the outer edges, linkages and landscaping. Well, all I can see is a little bit of green that will be abandoned around the outside. For me, the designs need to incorporate all this green within them. There's also no bridle ways, which we keep asking the developers for, and they seem to completely ignore those. And then when I get down the bottom, 5.15 and 5.16, it says that, well, we're not going to really do anything, we're going to do everything last. But what happens is when you do those things last, they don't happen. So for me, I think that I disagree entirely, because the green spaces and that feeling must be at the foremost for the future residents. So we need to see this linkage now. We need to see these spaces now. So my problem, it's not the principle, it's with the design. This looks like it's Harlow or Basildon or somewhere. This doesn't look like Malden. But anyway, those questions would be interesting to point out whether all of that is, because on that drawing there, I can't see it unless you've abandoned it on the outside edges, but there's nothing in there that says to me countryside, garden, suburb. It looks like a town. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor White. Mr Johnson. Several points there, I think.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not sure if I'll be able to follow all of them directly, but in terms of where the development sits, I mean, this is a parcel within an overall scheme. I think, as has been pointed out earlier, the strategic infrastructure and landscaping, which envelopes all of these parcels, has previously been approved. So I know reference made to maybe on the outer edges, but largely that's where the substantive elements of the green infrastructure is approved. The strategic landscaping was amongst the very first of the proposals brought forward to this committee, and the two major infrastructure applications were approved. They contain the substantive elements. Within them are the residential parcels, and you know, it's only within minutes that one would leave any particular front door of any of the houses, and you're within the green edges that surround the site. I mean, this is a design which is largely no different from any of those that we approved previously, and therefore, for the sake of consistency and coherence of the garden suburb, in officers' view, this is acceptable and it's in compliance and follows what members have previously approved. I mean, I would say if there was a design thought otherwise, and anything inconsistent with the parameter plans that have been mentioned, there would be a particular matter in that respect. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr Johnson. Councillor Nick Spenceley, please.
Thank you, Chair. One comment and two questions. The comment is that one of the three styles is, and this relates to the previous comment, village edge style, which is approved for the northern boundary. So pleased to see that, and let's hope it remains a village edge as per policy S4 of the local plan. Then the two questions. One, there's a very brief reference to youth facilities on page 37. It's 1.5 lines, and we desperately need youth facilities in the districts. I think in the key performance indicators we looked at a while ago, there were only 13 groups for the whole district, and it refers to long discussions and eventual approval. So I'd like to know how soon we can expect to see these proposals and a youth strategy emerging. The other question is about one of the conditions on page 65 or thereabouts. It talks about planting where trees and hedges do not thrive. So it's very good, you know, if it's more than a tick box exercise, it's great, because it says that if within 5 years a tree fails to flourish, it will be replaced. Now, to see how this plays out, we only have to look at the Bentles estate, which is the neighbouring estate, which has been in place for 4 or 5 years next to Holloway Road. And there's a boulevard as you go in, which is lined with brown poles with dead leaves on them. And there are some replacement hedges which are brown twigs sticking out of the ground. So I haven't seen any workers turning up to replant these defunct trees and plants. So is this a tick box exercise? If not, what is the mechanism for enforcing that replanting policy?
Thank you, Councillor Spensley. Mr Johnson, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The mechanism would be through a breach of condition, if that is the case, and through the council's enforcement powers to pursue a replanting. I mean, that's the process.
So to return to that, we can go through that process for the estate that's already been built.
It's already
This application.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Spensley's correcting me. Not for the first time.
And to break that up, that's not applicable on this application.
No, it isn't. So yeah, that's fine.
I do appreciate that, but in context of obviously the conditions as applied and how they're to be managed, I can appreciate the reasoning for the question. So I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Grateful, Councillor Spensley. Councillor Durham, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think actually, and on the back of what Councillor White has said, that actual drawing was quite misleading because it only shows, as Mr Johnson has said, that housing parcel. It would have been much more useful to have seen a complete site plan so we could understand the relationship of that housing parcel with the adjacent facilities, green spaces, so that we can get an overall look. I recall the previous applications. I know that they're there, so I think that that was a rather misleading drawing. And again, I have to agree that doesn't actually concord with the original artist impressions of what a garden suburb would end up looking like. And in fact, all the garden suburbs we went to visit on a site visit many years ago, but that's as may be, but I do understand. Chairman, I do need to declare an interest on the back of the comment about youth services because I'm the Cabinet member responsible for youth services at Essex County Council.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Durham. Any other members care to speak on this application? Councillor Stamp, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'd like to know what private rented means and I know what it means, but what does it mean in relation to this? I've never known it be said that we've got allocated houses, and it looks to me to be quite a substantial number of, can I change my glasses now? I'm sorry, private rented on a scheme. Where does that coincide with what John Swords always tells us about, the affordable housing, the makeup, what is required? I could be wrong again. Is there only one 5-bedroomed house on this site? So we've got all these homes, but we've only got one 5-bedroomed house. We all know that we've got families that are coming in from war zones and everything coming in that we're going to have to house as a housing authority. We all know that as district, we're the planning authorities that build these houses and have to house the people who are much deserving that are coming into our areas. I can't see how we're going to do that because they're generally larger families. So I would have hoped to see more than the allocated 1 and 2 bedrooms, which at this site seems very predominantly high to me, Mr Johnson. And the other thing about the school, I'm actually very concerned about the schools because I think new members maybe don't know, but I bang on about school delivery, whether it be SEND or ordinary everyday schools being built. And I actually sent the information to Councillor Spensley because we've just had a meeting, and I will declare an interest. I'm an Essex County Councillor, but this information is freely available on the website. There is going to be a huge deficiency of school places. So, it does say it's going to be delivered near the end, I think, Mr Johnson. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I would actually sincerely ask if the developer, along with Essex County Council, can make sure they deliver it, because in my experience so far, some of these schools that have been promised, we're still waiting for developments that have already been finished. And finally, Mr Chair, if you let me allow, Mr Nick Spensley raised an excellent point. We in Burnham have got because our houses was front loaded because nobody listened to us yet again. We knew it'd be all finished, so now we've got a deficit. the majority of the sites that have been planted out are one main one. There's over 20,000 dead trees and bushes. And I totally agree with Mr. Johnson, because he's actually been trying to help, but nothing has happened. And that site, which was supposed to be a showpiece for one of the Burnham sites to be delivered, is a disgrace. So I actually do think you need to keep trying your best, and whether that is the process to follow. We all know processes to follow. We get told them every day, and I think Councillor Fluke has maybe heard them, and Councillor Durham and Councillor Thompson more than the rest of us, and we get told that the process takes a long time. I think we ought to start to address this when planners are meeting with the officers to try and make sure these things are delivered in an expedient, accordant time that can actually benefit these communities. And that is not a garden suburb. If you want to see a garden suburb, come and look at the one opposite me at the moment. That's if you don't grant any more planning. It's beautifully laid out, green spaces, play areas, and yes, I agree, Mr. Councillor Durham's point about we need to see the whole thing. That's a massive lot of houses without anywhere for some little John and Jenny's or whoever to go and get on a climbing frame or have a bit of fun looking at a bug garden or disabled swings or whatever you want to put there. It's a huge development. And at the moment, I know, I'm not decided I'm going to vote, but it doesn't inspire me. And I'm sorry if I've offended you. I really don't mean to, but I do think you can do better. Not you personally, but developers can do better for this area. We are a beautiful area and we need to look after it and stop accepting developments that could be done better.
Thank you, Councillor Stan.
Sorry, have I done 3 minutes?
You've done 5.
I have not. I have not.
I'll
That
let
is
you finish because I
naughty.
think you'll be coming to
Where's the
conclusion
green
now.
credentials? Okay, I'll let somebody else speak. Where's the green
If you want
credentials?
you can finish
No,
now.
it's fine, Chairman. I do as I'm told. You know that.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Stamp. Councillor Fluker, please.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, hold on a
sorry,
second.
I'll give way to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not aware of the comment that was made by the councillor in terms of the private renters. I mean, what we've approved is compliance with our housing needs standards as set out within the report. If there are any other developments other than that, then that's something that we would need to look into. But that's a matter that needs to be brought to our attention. This is the first I've heard of this. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Councillor Fluker, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just start by reminding all members, Chairman, that there's a very important meeting in this chamber tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and I hope that as many members as possible attend that. A question for Mr. Johnson through you, Chairman. This is a reserve matter for 234 residential units. So has the principle of that number already been agreed?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, it has.
Chairman, if you let me come back then. So I understand what members are saying about layout, but at the end of the day, we're somewhat hogtied because 234 residential units have been agreed in principle. So we can't change it, we can't add space. And Chairman, call me an anorak, and I counted them, but there's only 62 trees on this site in relation to 234 units. But of course, our own landscaping experts has agreed the principle of this. So whilst I understand what members say, I think, Chairman, you've put the recommendation. I'd certainly support it, and I hope you now put it to the members so that we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker. I think you've noticed that there's very few trees, but on the artist impression, there's 2 people that live there and 1 push bike. So again, it's something I've always bashed on about. Be realistic and let us see what it actually is. And I know it's unusual for the chair to comment, but with the apartments, flats, I think the design is poor. I don't think it lends itself to the concept of what the area actually is. And I'm disappointed to see them coming in such a bulky, incongruous style, but that's a personal thing that I feel I need to say. So thank you. Councillor White, please.
Yeah, thank you for indulging me to come back again. I was just saying, we've got an orchard of over 60 trees and we've planted around about 2,000. Unless you're going to set up a watering system, they will not survive. So unless we need to put it in the conditions that they set up an automatic watering system, or they employ somebody to come out and water every single day, because no trees will survive in a UK summer. It just will not happen. It doesn't matter how many plant, every single year they will die unless we happen to have a wet summer. So I think going forward, that's something we need to get written into the conditions. I mean, there's loads of things you can do. You can have like big bags that you can fill up. They're not very practical. Really, it wants a proper irrigation system. If the developers really want to keep these things alive, they're either going to have to supply a gardener or they're going to have to do some irrigation. Otherwise, it's not going to work, and we're going to continually be replacing them.
Thank you, Councillor White. I don't think we can condition that, or can we condition that?
Thank you, Chairman. That doesn't instinctively sound to me as though it's a condition which would meet the necessary legal tests.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Well, members, we've had a debate, and we have had a proposal which has been seconded. So I need to put that to the vote by a show of hands. Those in favour, please. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That's 13 for. Those against, please. It's 1, 2, 3, and myself is 4. Those abstain, please. So that's 1 abstention. So that's carried. The recommendation, therefore, is passed. Thank you, members. We move on to item 7, which is application 2300226/RESM. This is land at Broad Street Green Road and Langford Road and Maypole Road, Great Totham, Essex. This is found on pages 71 to 114. Again, obviously, Mr. Johnson is going to present in the chamber. We do have a public participant, Mr. Ben Thomas, the agent for the applicant, who will be invited to speak in a short period of time. And I believe, Mr. Johnson, there's also a verbal update on this item, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The verbal update actually covers both applications in terms of consultee responses, which I've set out previously. Sorry, I need to change the presentation. There's normally 2 of us up here, so apologies. Okay.
Thank you.
To a large extent, the presentation on this application is very similar to the previous one. I will effectively just be repeating myself, unless members feel I need to go through those whole points again. It's probably just as well I go straight to the slides. The whole context of the development is exactly the same. The details are largely the same, just on different plots. What the developers have had to work to is exactly the same requirements. So I think probably in that respect, I'll just go straight to the slides, and then we can progress on with the discussion.
Yeah.
So this is the proposed layout for parcels 3, 6, and 7. This particular element of the development was subject several months ago to a members update, just to members briefing, to just sort of take members through the general principles of what is proposed and to give some sort of idea. And obviously this is the worked up scheme, which obviously has been progressing with the applicants over the last several months. So this proposes, and I'll just need to refresh myself with this proposes 246 dwellings over these 3 parcels here, and to the north of parcels 3 and 6 is the relief road running along the top here, which is slightly just off the slide. So again, very similar to previous. We've got the various story heights. We've got single story, 2, 2.5, and 3 stories dotted throughout the development. I mean, we can see a little bit more context on this one in terms of some of the adjoining infrastructure, which I mentioned previously and it had been approved by this committee. Again, just the affordable housing and sort of where they're, well, the various types of affordable housing, shared ownership, affordable rent, affordable housing, how they're pepper dotted throughout the site. Again, materials layout, this is really, it's probably not going to seem that coherent from that distance, but it's really just to give an idea that there's a palette of materials that's applied to the various building types. Again, amenity layout, private gardens, communal amenity areas, balcony areas, communal garden areas. These are just the various types of amenity within the plots. Again, just variously located on these different parcels here. And again, we've got the street scene here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements of the street scene. This is a fairly long elevation along the northern frontage. The various sections here are relate to the partitioned areas on the top drawing, just to give a flavour of how, when you're walking along that northern edge, how the design changes, the variation, etc. So these are the various elements of this sum total along the top here. And again, just showing the eastern edge where it adjoins these attenuation ponds and the sort of greener infrastructure. And again, further to the east of that, we've got amenity areas, and beyond that, we've got Haybridge Wood. Again, just a bit more of street scenes, again, just showing the various house types. And again, just showing down the western edge of the site, running through this sort of internal spine road along here. And again, just another part of the same stretch of road. Landscape plan showing the various landscaping element. We did have a discussion on the previous schemes about how that's integrated into the infrastructure surrounding these various parcels. And just an example of the house types. And floor plans. You can always come back to any of these drawings on request if so required. Maisonettes, garages, the cycle stores. And again, just some aerial photographs showing the various parcels. We've got 3, 6, and 7 there, just from the different angles. But again, as sort of previously, again, this is useful in terms of seeing where these particularly lie in terms of other infrastructure. And here we have this parcel 7, parcel 6 up there, and parcel 3. Got the open space in the, we've got Haybridge Wood. So I suppose in terms of context, although it doesn't have the detailed design, I suppose that gives us the best context in terms of how the various parcels sit together. And there ends that presentation. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Johnson. We have one public speaker. It's Mr. Ben Thomas. Mr. Thomas? Again, if you just want to come up to the table. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Okay, again, Mr. Thomas, we'll just wait until the little timer comes up, and you'll have 2 minutes from the time you start speaking. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Good evening, Chair, members. My name is Ben Thomas, and I'm a planning consultant representing Crest Nicholson Easton, who are the applicant. Crest Nicholson is pleased that this application is recommended for approval, which represents the culmination of a significant amount of pre-application work and positive engagement with your officers, statutory consultees, including Essex County Council and the master developer, Countryside Properties. The North Haybridge site is a key development for Crest Nicholson within its eastern region, who have a long-standing commitment to Mayland district and has been delivering well-needed homes, including affordable homes at Linebrook Park and Park Drive over the last few years. As we've heard this evening, parcels 3, 6 and 7 form part of the North Heybridge Garden Suburb, which is phase 4. This phase will deliver the following benefits: the delivery of 246 homes, of which 30% will be affordable, the inclusion of a wide range of accommodation types and sizes, including family homes, bungalows, smaller one-bedroom homes, which will assist to create a mixed and balanced community. Increased public access to the natural landscape and environment with a network of well-planned green spaces and tree-lined streets. It has access to the woodland edge, which provides a rural environment for future residents, and the provision of an extensive network of cycleways and footpaths designed to encourage sustainable travel and linkages into the existing town centre community. This Reserve Matters application follows the outline permission granted in 2015. It fully accords with the site allocation of the local plan, the approved strategic master plan framework and the design code. There are no objections for any statutory consultees. The design fulfils the policy aim of delivering an attractive new community and the delivery of high quality housing, including policy compliant provision of affordable housing and family homes, which will contribute towards the Council's housing targets. Therefore, in accordance with the Office's assessment and positive recommendation, we respectfully request that members support the application and grant planning approval this evening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Thomas. Thank you. Members, the recommendation is to approve, and this is found on page 71 of the report, and is subject to conditions outlined in section 8, which commence on page 106. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Durham. That's seconded. Members, I open the chamber. Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Chairman. It's pretty much the same as the last one, but my problem is, and it shows you on this picture, and if you go back to the green infrastructure picture, it's my same old problem with these green areas. The developers come in, they go, oh, we've got these wonderful green boundaries, you can cycle, the children can walk on that one there. The children can walk on them. No, they can't. You've got a road one side, and you've got an attenuation pond on the other side. So because that's an attenuation pond, isn't it? The same as the last, that was one of the questions I didn't get answered on the last application, was location of attenuation ponds. And if you look at the slide you were on just now, those attenuation ponds are full even before the housing's built. Now, I know they'll say, oh, well, we've done our calculations, SUDS have signed it off, which, yes, they have, but they're full already. So what's going to happen when you get the roads and the infrastructure, and where are those children going to go and play? And this is my problem with these developments. All they do is they think, oh, well, we'll lob those on the outside, and then we'll lob a bit of green around the outside. But there's no thought to where people are going to play. Because again, where are these areas for play? I mean, I don't have children, but lots of other people do. So where are they going to play? You know, and that's my problem, is it's the same old thing. And I'm really surprised that this is classed as a suitable design when you've got all these issues. And it was the same as the last one. And I've just realised that's the question that I didn't get answered on the last one, was the location of the attenuation ponds. So I think that was the same. I think they were on that corner of that development where you'd got the so-called green areas. So, yeah.
Thank you, Councillor White.
Where are the green play areas that don't involve drowning?
Yeah, I think, apologies for not picking up on that point, but I think, as said earlier, I mean, these are just for the residential parcels. The landscape infrastructure, play areas, etc., was approved previously under 3 separate type of applications. Those are the applications that show all the play areas and the infrastructure. These attenuation ponds, I mean, we obviously can't go by how they are now. The development hasn't been approved in this particular respect. I know some other parcels are, but this is development under construction. What I do recall from the previous infrastructure applications was that it was stressed the multi-use purpose of these attenuation ponds. And, you know, there was great detail went into how they would be used, and there was lots of questionings from members at the time, as I recall. But clearly those can't be confused with this particular application, because that's the structure which has been approved into which these parcels are to relate to. So in terms of how local residents of these parcels relate to the play area and infrastructure, that's part of the infrastructure approval, which has already been considered by members. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Councillor Nick Spenceley, please.
Thank you, Chair. If you stand to the north of this whole development, you realise just how steeply it slopes to the area of Heybridge, which is in flood zone 3 to the south. Nevertheless, I'll confine myself to the plots under discussion and a detail in 5.8.2, which talks about permeable paving to private driveways. Now, house owners being what they are, you'll get all sorts of drives emerging in due course, I suspect, which will be far from permeable. Is there such a thing these days as a restrictive covenant, and does it have any value beyond the paper that it's written on?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, the materials are part of the proposal in front of us for approval. They're to be submitted, details considered. It is for the developer to carry that out, and for the materials to be retained in perpetuity with the development. It's not for individual homeowners to, sort of come along and decide that, they want, just, tarmac or, I don't know, something like that, just to swathe over their front drives or their rear gardens. I mean, that would be a breach of the planning approval or these reserved matters. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. It's Councillor Paula Spenceley, please.
So just to clear up for members something, because I've taken a lot of time to go over there and speak to the developers, so I have quite a good understanding of how the flood alleviation on this site will work. So those attenuation ponds will, after construction, be joined to the existing ditch network, which is what's referenced actually in the report if you read it. I've spoken to them about the modelling for that, and actually in a storm event they will make a difference of less than, I think it's or around 1 millimetre, which is a little disappointing. But the reason I bring this up is obviously it's not, unfortunately it's been approved, as you say. I say unfortunately because I do represent sort of hundreds of homes in flood zone 3A at the bottom of that, but it has been approved and we have to accept that. But what it doesn't do, which I do sometimes get a little bit angry about, is when people say, oh, it'll take care of the flood alleviation for Haybridge. The developers on there tell me that at the bottom at Holloway Road it still needs flood alleviation. They openly tell me that. So just so that we have that understanding for future discussions. But you're right, it's already been approved, Mr. Johnson, I know, and within the scheme, and it is what it is. But that's why they're full, is because once construction is further on, they will connect underground to the existing, they'll drain off to the existing ditch network at a controlled rate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think what I would say to that is we've approved a scheme which is modelled in a particular way, in that these attenuation ponds would be delivered and to be multi-use within the acceptable limits. Clearly, if that's not the case, then that means that the development hasn't been carried out as approved. So there would be no obviating from any responsibility in that respect. I don't know, maybe to say, well, maybe it might be I was going to say Thames Water. Sorry, where I live, yeah. It's a local, it's the water services responsibility. We work with them. If they can't deliver their end of it, we can't deliver ours. I think that's something that as an enforcement, we would probably have to, it's probably novel. This isn't something that I have to say personally I've ever been involved in, but to pursue that and to see how obligations can be secured, it would be definitely within the remit of enforcement. As to how that would pan out in reality, I don't know. Yeah.
If I could just come back, it's not. I know what you're saying, but it's not really. I think it's probably not an enforcement issue. It's a let's get a flood alleviation scheme issue. But I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Spenceley. Councillor Stilts, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 89, 5.7.1, it says the application site does not fall within or close proximity to a nature conservation site. However, it does sit right by Haybridge Woods, which is, as we've said, an ancient wood. So have we done any studies on the wildlife that will be in the Haybridge Woods that could be affected, like badgers and things like that, by this housing site?
Thank you, Councillor Stilts. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. The development itself does not adjoin Haybridge Woods. I mean, the consideration for the impact of development on Haybridge Wood again was part of the infrastructure approvals. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. The next person to speak will be Councillor Stamp, because you haven't spoken yet. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I actually ask if the holding objection from Essex County Council SUDS has been received, and if it has, has it been, yeah, sorry, 7.3, page 104. Thank you, Councillor White. Has that been removed?
Yes, Chairman. I mean, it's what I referred to in the members' verbal update.
Can I ask why we didn't get a members' update rather than a verbal update? Because I'd like to have received to read that. Does it just read that? Does it just say it's been removed? What was the mitigation? How has it changed? Why has it changed?
The reason for the delay is that it wasn't received until quite late and after the publication of the agenda.
Thank you. Councillor White, please. You wanted to come back earlier on?
Actually, Councillor Stamp has raised what I was going to raise, which was 7.3 about the flood report. So, but I mean, really, I think we should have that in writing, because I don't think without that we've got enough information to proceed. I mean, that's what, for whatever reason, it's got held up. I have a concern with that.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, I wouldn't have said that the objection was removed if it wasn't. This is matters that can be easily corroborated. But for the avoidance of doubt, I can actually log into my laptop and I can actually read out what they sent to us. If members would be satisfied with that approach, just have to give me a second to log in. So I don't know if you want to continue with any other questions while I do that.
Yeah, maybe you could circulate that after the meeting.
Yeah, I do have it here. It's just a matter of logging in and I'll have it there
I think for expediency of the meeting, I think that would be better off after the meeting. Yeah, it's important that we do consider information that comes in late on planning applications. Councillor Paula Spenceley, you wanted to come back?
It was just about Haybridge Wood for a little bit of clarity, just to help out. So only because I know a lot about it, so well, quite a lot. So the woodland is being managed by the Land Trust, and there's currently an application in to remove a number of trees, which actually will help the wood. It's to create open pathways through and raise the canopy. And the wildlife in there has been assessed. I have asked for another ecologist to have another look who's interested in moths and things, but I don't actually know if that'll happen. But there has been a full ecological assessment in terms of what's in there. Sadly, I think there's only one badger set now instead of two. What is tragic is that we have lost, and it seems we have lost, the red-listed skylarks, because the 15-metre buffer zone to the woods, skylarks don't generally nest underneath woods, under trees, for obvious reasons. When they go upwards, get knocked out by trees, I suppose. But they're supposed to nest, or they do nest in open fields, and it was full of them there. And you probably remember that initially this suburb was opposed by the RSPB, but obviously that's all past history. So thank you.
Thank you. I don't think there's any comment needed there, Mr. Johnson, is there? No, thank you, Councillor Spenceley. Councillor Fluker, please.
Yeah, thank you. Look, I think we need to take what Mr. Johnson said as verbatim regarding the holding objection from Essex Water or whoever. An interesting thing about it, I noticed that no one's gone on policy D1, and I actually think the design of some of the houses looks good. And I think, with the greatest respect to my friends from countryside who sit behind me, I do think that the Crest Nicholson development in Park Drive, if it is Park Drive, I think is one of the best ones actually that's come into Malden over the years. But one thing about this application, which, Chairman, I don't have any problems with, is that if you actually agree this recommendation tonight, you will actually be agreeing to 246 black front doors, which I find, so I'm sure you all picked up on that, and I think there's I think, I'm surprised. I know the police will have been consulted over this application because they always are, but it does surprise me if a suspect makes good and he runs onto the estate chairman and says, and a witness says he ran into the house with the black door. But I sort of admire the design palette of Crest Nicholson's over this, Chairman, and I know that you've put the recommendation, and I think what Councillor Spenceley says about the birds and everything else, that would have been mitigated by the ecology report. So, Chairman, I can't see any reason why we can't approve this, and hopefully you'll be able to put that now and we can vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fluker. I'll certainly do that after I've exhausted any member who wishes to raise any comments on such important matters. I see the Chamber seems to reach a conclusion, so we have a recommendation that has been seconded. Members, could I ask for a show of hands for the recommendation, please? You put your hands up quite high because my eyesight's getting terrible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It's 14-4. Those against, please. 1, 2, 3. Those abstain? I'll abstain. So that's carried, please. Thank you very much indeed, members, for a very informative and caring debate. We move on to item number 8, any other items of business that the chairman decides are urgent. There is one, and that's just to reinforce what Councillor Fluker has said about our meeting tomorrow at 1 p.m, members. Okay. Therefore, I bring the meeting to a close. So thank you for your contributions this evening. I now draw this meeting to a close at 8:30 p.m. Thank you. As the meeting is now closed,